Good morning. Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to another chapter of First Chapter Friday. As you know, I have just finished reading the first two books in the testing series. It's actually a trilogy. I'm on the third book called Graduation Day. The testing is about a young woman who obviously has to go through rounds of testing in order to become one of the leaders of their country. The testing is a dystopian novel, meaning that at one point, we were living in a utopia where we were as close to perfect as possible. Unfortunately, the world then goes into the 7 stages of war because everyone has their own idea of what perfect should be. So at this point in the story, the world has gone through all these 7 stages. It's barely sustaining life. The earth is barely sustaining life. So they have to make sure that the best of the best are now becoming leaders of the world. Our main character goes through testings, and now she is obviously past the majority of her testings, but even in the third novel, she is still being tested. She now must decide, do her alliances line up with the government or with what she believes is the right thing to do? As I was reading through the story, it reminded me fondly of one of the other dystopian novels I read quite a few years ago and has since seen made into a movie, but I was actually thinking of The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games is one of the first most wildly popular dystopian novels. And what's not to love? Katniss, the main character, is a strong female lead character. She gets through what seems like the impossible, which is actually kind of cool. And especially in these times where we are dealing with another round of virtual learning, we're dealing with another very strong wave in the pandemic. It kind of seems now that we're getting to this point where things are getting harder, things are getting impossible to manage and to carry, and we feel this weight on our shoulders with so much pressure to do the right thing. When I feel this a little overwhelmed, I tend to turn to stories that have characters that inspire me. And no matter what your thoughts and feelings are about the Hunger Games movies, I'm here to tell you that the book is better than the movie. Convince me otherwise. But I really wanted to share a portion. I'm not going to read all of chapter 1. It's quite long. It would take me over half an hour to read, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to sit and watch a video that's 30 minutes long of just me reading a story. So I'm going to read you the first portion of the story and just introduce you to Katniss, that strong character, that strong lead character that clearly knows what she's up against, but kind of decides to live life anyway. So without further ado, here is chapter 1 in The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. When I wake up, the other side of the bed is cold. My fingers stretch out, seeking Prim's warmth, but finding only the rough canvas cover of the mattress. She must have had bad dreams and climbed in with our mother. Of course she did. This is the day of the reaping. I prop myself up on one elbow. There's enough light in the bedroom to see them. My little sister Prim, curled up on her side, cocooned in my mother's body, their cheeks pressed together. In sleep, my mother looks younger, still worn, but not so beaten down. Prim's face is as fresh as a raindrop, as lovely as the primrose for which she was named. My mother was very beautiful once, too, or so they tell me. Sitting on Prim's knee, guarding her, is the world's ugliest cat. Mashed-in nose, half of one ear missing, eyes the color of rotting squash. Prim named him Buttercup, insisting that his muddy yellow coat matched the bright flower. He hates me, or at least distrusts me. Even though it was years ago, I think he still remembers how I tried to drown him in a bucket when Prim brought him home. Scrawny kitten, belly swollen with worms, crawling with fleas. The last thing I needed was another mouth to feed, but Prim begged so hard, cried even, I had to let him stay. It turned out okay, but my mother got rid of the varmint, and he's a born mouser. Even catches the occasional rat. Sometimes when I clean a kill, I feed Buttercup the entrails. He has stopped hissing at me. Entrails? No hissing. This is the closest we will ever come to love. I swing my legs off the bed and slide into my hunting boots, supple leather that has molded to my feet. I pull on trousers, a shirt, tucked my long brown braid into a cap, and grab my forage bag. On the table, under a wooden bowl, to protect it from hungry rats and cats alike, sits a perfect little goat cheese wrapped in basil leaves. Prim's gift to me on reaping day. I put the cheese carefully in my pocket as I slip outside. Our part of District 12, nicknamed the Seam, is usually crawling with coal miners heading out to the morning shift at this hour. Men and women with hunched shoulders, swollen knuckles, many of who have long since stopped trying to scrub the coal dust out of their broken nails and the lines of their sunken faces. But today the black cinder streets are empty. Shutters on the squat gray houses are closed. The reaping isn't until 2. May as well sleep in, if you can. Our house is almost at the edge of the seam. I only have to pass a few gates to reach the scruffy field called the meadow. Separating the meadow from the woods, in fact, enclosing all of District 12, is a high chain link fence topped with barbed wire loops. In theory, it's supposed to be electrified 24 hours a day as a deterrent to the predators that live in the woods. Packs of wild dogs, lone cougars, bears, etc., that used to live in our streets. But since we're lucky to get 2 or 3 hours of electricity in the evenings, it's usually safe to touch. Even so, I always take a moment to listen carefully for the hum that means the fence is live. Right now, it's silent as a stone. Concealed by a clump of bushes, I flatten out on my belly and slide under a 2-foot stretch that's been loose for years. There are several other weak spots in the fence, but this one is so close to home, I almost always enter the woods here. As soon as I'm in the trees, I retrieve a bow and sheath of arrows from a hollow log. Electrified or not, the fence has been successful at keeping the flesh eaters out of District 12. Inside the woods, they roam freely, and there are added concerns like venomous snakes, rabid animals, and no real paths to follow. But there's also food if you know how to find it. My mother knew, and he taught me some before he was blown to bits in a mine explosion. There was nothing even to bury. I was 11 then. 5 years later, I still wake up screaming for him to run. Even though trespassing in the woods is illegal and poaching carries the severest of penalties, more people would risk it if they had weapons. But most are not bold enough to venture out with just a knife. My bow is a rarity, crafted by my father along with a few others that I keep well hidden in the woods, carefully wrapped in waterproof covers. My father could have made good money selling them, but if the officials found out, he would have been publicly executed for inciting a rebellion. Most of the peacekeepers turn a blind eye to the few of us who hunt because they're as hungry for fresh meat as anybody is. In fact, they are among our best customers. But the idea that someone might be arming the seam could never have been allowed. In fact, a few brave souls sneak into the woods to harvest apples, but always inside of the meadow, always close enough to run back to the safety of District 12 if trouble arises. District 12, where you can starve to death in safety, I mutter. Then I glance quickly over my shoulder. Even here, in the middle of nowhere, you worry someone might overhear you. When I was younger, I scared my mother to death, the things I would blurt out about District 12, about the people who rule our country Panem from the far-off city called the capital. Eventually, I understood this would only lead us to more trouble, so I learned to hold my tongue and to turn my features into an indifferent mask so that no one could ever read my thoughts. Do my work quietly in school, make only polite small talk in the public market, discuss little more than trades in the hob, which is the black market where I make most of my money. Even at home, where I am less pleasant, I avoid discussing the tricky topics, like the reaping or food shortages or the Hunger Games. Prim might begin to repeat my words, and then where would we be? In the woods waits the only person with whom I can be myself, Gale. I can feel the muscles in my face relaxing, my pace quickening as I climb the hills to our place, a rock ledge overlooking a valley. A thicket of berry bushes protects it from unwanted eyes. The sight of him waiting there brings on a smile. Gale says I never smile except in the woods. Hey, Catnip, says Gale. My real name is Katniss, but when I first told him I had barely whispered it, so he thought I'd said catnip. Then when this crazy lynx started following me around the woods looking for handouts, it became his official nickname for me. I finally had to kill the lynx because he scared off game. I almost regretted it because he wasn't bad company, but I got a decent price for his pelt. Look what I shot. Gale holds up a loaf of bread with an arrow stuck in it, and I laugh. It's real bakery bread, not the flat, dense loaves we make from our grain rations. I take it in my hands, pull out the arrow, and hold the puncture in the crust to my nose, inhaling the fragrance that makes my mouth flood with saliva. Fine bread like this is for special occasions. Still warm, I say. He must have been at the bakery at the crack of dawn to trade for it. What did it cost you? Just a squirrel. Think the old man was feeling sentimental this morning, says Gail, even wished me luck. Well, we all feel a little closer today, don't we, I say, not even bothering to roll my eyes. Prim left us a cheese, and I pull it out. His expression brightens at the treat. Thank you, Prim. We'll have a real feast. Suddenly, he falls into a capital accent as he mimics Effie Trinket, the maniacal, upbeat woman who arrives once a year to read out the names of the reaping. I almost forgot. Happy Hunger Games. He plucks a few blackberries from the bushes around us. And may the odds, he tosses a berry in a high arc toward me. I catch it in my mouth and break the delicate skin with my teeth. The sweet tartness explodes across my tongue. Be ever in your favor. I finish with equal verb. And that definitely is a trademark slogan of the Hunger Games movies. May the odds be ever in your favor. As we go through the rest of today, make sure that you just decide. Today is going to be the day you're going to get your work done, and we're going to finish everything that we need to, so that starting tomorrow or even today at 3:30, you are completely work-free and you can thoroughly enjoy this Thanksgiving holiday. I wish all of you a very happy Turkey Day, and I can't wait to see you again starting Monday, November 30th for our all virtual classes. See you guys then.